should get united. Like, what we gotta do is meet everybody on 149th Street at the bench.
You know what's one thing graffiti artists absolutely suck at? Taking critiques. Today I want to talk to you guys all about how to take critiques, what to look out for, red flags, and how to even give critiques. Because that's something graffiti, and even art in general, quite honestly, is just simply not good at. But it's necessary, so let me tell you guys a little bit of a story. You see, there was this graffiti artist I didn't quite get along with. I was in one crew, he was in a different crew. We did not get along at all whatsoever. But we had a mutual friend. And our mutual friend was the leader of one of these numbers crews. One of those crews that kind of just recruit people just to have more heads in the crew. And as fate would have it, our mutual friend went ahead and put us both down in this crew. So I decided, you know, let me go ahead and try to network. Let me go ahead and try to make friends, you know, make peace, all that good stuff. And the dude asked for a critique. I'm telling you, he wanted advice. So I told him, yo, your letters are corny. Probably not the best critique to give, especially since he doesn't like me. But I told him his letters sucked, and his colors were nice, and he should probably... Why did I word it? Why did I tell him like that? I'm the one who's really at fault here. And obviously he got all upset. Granted, he asked for the critique. He can't be mad at it. Hold up, I'll be back. So later this dude ends up coming back to me saying, yo, you suck, you're a toy, you don't even need to talk to me. I've been doing graffiti for like 20 years and I got, you know, age on you as far as graffiti's concerned. And I'm like, dude, you've been doing graffiti for 20 years and you still suck? That's crazy, man. That's crazy. Mind you, this discussion I'm talking about, this story happened like 15 years ago at this point. And this put the guy over the edge. This put the dude way over the edge. He's like, man, you don't even know who I am. I'm a cop. And I'm like, wow, a graffiti artist who's a cop. And then he threatened to go ahead and get the shop raided. And I'm like, what? What? You're not gonna do let me stop here. Anyway, back on topic. I forgot what we were talking about. What were we even talking about? Oh, critiques. So, my point being, people tend to get really defensive over critiques. And they feel like, alright, if you don't hit X and Y kind of landmark, then you shouldn't even be giving me your critique. But let me tell you a little something. Out of all the professional teacher friends I have who teach art, and even in my own experience with my, 20 years of experience teaching art, what I've found is the best graffiti artists or the best artists in general are always able to take a critique. But here's the thing, you can't just take any critique and accept it, which is something graffiti artists tend to do when they're toys. When you're a toy and you hear literally anybody give you a critique, you're like, yes, oh, I kneel to thee, yes, I'll take your advice. But you gotta stop that bull, because most graffiti artists don't know what they're talking about. You have to look at the critique that's being given to you, whether it's from an amateur or not, and you have to ask yourself, are they right? If the answer is no, find out why they're not right. It's not simply good enough to find out that they're not right, you have to find out why they're not right. Because that instills the understanding in you to break down the science behind why they're not right. If they are right, then you have to ask them to explain the science behind why they're right. And if they can't, then you gotta figure it out. And it might even be worth it to ask, what credentials do they have? How credible are they? Because what I found is, while yes, super professional artists are obviously credible, intermediate and amateur artists tend to not be all that credible. And they tend to be wrong more times than they're actually right. While on the other hand, people who don't even do art at all whatsoever tend to actually be more credible than the amateur or intermediate artist. Why is that, you ask? Because that's kind of a weird conundrum. The reason is because the amateur and the intermediate artists let what they think they know get in the way of the actual information and facts. There's a lot that those two artists don't quite yet understand. As for the person who doesn't do art at all whatsoever, they're just looking at the piece and seeing, what looks off to them. That's it. They're not thinking too deep into it. Now, just to cover all the bases, we gotta talk about the super professional artists and why they're so credible. You see, because these artists, they have the knowledge to look really deep into your artwork and see the science that explains every single angle and every single aspect as to why they're right. An example I'll give to you is when I used to stream on Twitch pretty regularly, I would be doing a hyper-realistic oil painting, and every now and again we'd get an amateur to an intermediate artist that would come in and they would slam me with a critique, and they'd be like, oh, well, this is wrong because of that, and this is wrong because of that, and this is wrong because of that. And I'm like, well, dude, did you consider this, and this? And the answer was, well, no, I didn't know half that stuff existed. On the flip side though, I had people that were brand new to art, and most of them didn't even do art, and they would hit me with a critique, and they were almost always right. They would hit me with these critiques, and they were always right, despite having less experience than some of the really experienced people that would give me a critique. And it's for those reasons I mentioned. Now, as a graffiti artist, you have to be able to take a critique, otherwise you're not gonna get better. But if you take the wrong type of critique, you're only gonna get worse. Getting a bad critique is arguably worse than getting no critique at all, because it misguides you and sends sends you down the wrong path. And that's why you need to ask what the science behind the critique is. Whenever anybody critiques your work, ask them to break down the science. I think as a graffiti artist, you'll find this works really well. You'll end up filtering out a lot of bad information this way and saving yourself a massive headache. You also can't get really defensive with critiques, because if you do, you might actually gloss over some really important information. And this is why I always say to think about the critique you were given. Give it a chance, listen to it, and see if it works out. And if you get a bad critique, it's up to you whether or not you want to call it out or whether or not you want to leave it at that. The most important lesson is to challenge the critique. You see, the best thing you can do when you're in a position of learning is ask questions. As a teacher, man, the best thing, like the thing I loved the most, was when a student knew what questions to ask and they would ask it. Those are always the people that grew the most. They're always the ones that progress the fastest. You have to ask questions. You can't just get a critique. You gotta challenge the critique. You have to ask about the critique. You gotta break down things that you don't understand. That way you can understand them. And if you're the one giving the critique, then be ready to get challenged, because people are gonna challenge your critique and you have to be able to back it up. If you don't know the science to back up your critique, then you're gonna run into issues. And you might find that you're the one getting a critique at the end of the day. This can actually be a really good thing if both artists are on the same level, because then it enters a bit of a debate, which can actually lead to a lot of progress. But let's say it's two uneven artists, one who's really good who's receiving the critique and one who's not as good giving the critique, then this will almost always turn into the one who's not as good who gave the critique end up getting a critique from the better artist once the better artist decides to challenge the lesser artist. Lesser is a horrible way to put that, but I can't words right now. My apologies, man. Dudes, that's gonna bring us into today's video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to the smartest graffiti community anywhere online. We got the best graffiti tutorials right up here. And then down here, we got even more graffiti content for you. So join this incredible community now. Catch you guys next week. Thanks for watching. There you go.